Hey Vipan, hey everybody.
Good morning, Simon. Nice to see you.
You too. Another morning chat with you, mate. Always a pleasure. Today
Likewise.
we are today we're going to talk about fatherhood, and we've had some amazing subjects. This is one that's I'm currently in the middle of, and yeah, I know. I don't know when are you not in the middle of it. I imagine once you start.
Once you start, and I know it's interesting for you because and you're going to tell the audience that you've got a beautiful set of twins. So and they're very young at the moment. So I'm very curious to know your yeah. Tell the audience a bit about how's it going so far, and what are the key. What are your reflections so far on the first? What is it? 18? How old are they?
So
18 months?
6.5 months.
Oh, 6.5. God Almighty. Yeah. Sorry, I've lost track. Yeah,
Yeah.
only six. That's amazing. The first 6.5 months, Simon. How would you summarize that so far?
Well, I'm not. Well, firstly, I think it's important to know I've got 6 month old boys, 6.5 month old boys, twin boys, Jupiter and Phoenix, and it's funny, isn't it? You think about your children being born from the moment they come out of the womb, but actually, for me, I think about these boys as a dream and an idea that my wife and I had, and the journey that we went on even to get pregnant. I feel like I've been on this journey for a long time. From the moment Jess and I met, really, we came together and we realized there was a mother and a father potentiality in both of us, and that it was something we very consciously said to each other: shall we do this? Should we have a family? Shall we commit our whole lives to each other? Shall we enter into this? We'd both been on these spiritual journeys where I reduced my life down to two paths. There was the path of renunciation, which was the path of letting go of everything, including my name, right? Like letting go of everything. And then there was the path of ultimate responsibility, which was to commit myself to something much bigger than myself in the form of a family. And my wife had the same journey. And we went through a long way just to even get pregnant, just for Jess to even become pregnant. We had an ectopic, we had a chemical pregnancy, we had a miscarriage. Jess was pumped full of IVF drugs. We had fertility treatments, and so it's very difficult to just go 6 months, because it's been a really long, it was almost like a trip to Mordor. It's like Lord of the Rings before they were even born. So to be honest, Vipan, since the moment they were born, we've been in pure bliss and joy. It's been the hardest, most amazing 6 months, but we feel so blessed for them to be here with us. We've been blessed with these two beings they sleep for 12 hours a night, they feed regularly, they're on the same schedule. Like we're very lucky. We thank God for that. And I think the biggest challenge for me has been, we have twins, which means it's all hands on deck all the time. So I think my biggest challenge has been like involvement. I had this moment after 3 months where I realized my boys don't have a mother and a father. They have two mothers, because I'm like feeding them and I'm picking them up and I'm soothing them, because there's two of them, right? Mm-hmm. I imagine when you have one, if it needs soothing, the mother would soothe, and the mother would, but because there's two of them, we both have to feed. We both have to do everything. So I got very much in touch with my nourishing, nurturing, feminine, feeding, involvement side, and that's been phenomenally rewarding. I feel very physically connected to my sons because I've touched them so much. I've had my hands on them, I kiss them, and now I'm roaring with them and wrestling with them, and I put my bear claw on them and grab them, and I have this very visceral, physical relationship with my sons, because we had no choice. So it's been a blessing that we had twins, and you've had twins. You would know what that's like.
Well, yeah, I guess we have that in common. I forgot about that.
It was a long time.
I know. Although mine are a bit further down the stage. They're now 19. They've recently had their 19th birthday. But I love the story that it isn't. So you're 6 months, but I think the couple of points I want to touch upon. That it's been a journey to have the children and the babies in the first place. And I think that in itself, people take that for granted, many people, but in fact, a lot of other families struggle to have children. So it's a real blessing. And I think we should, first of all, really acknowledge that once to have children is not a guaranteed to certainty. And so every day is a blessing because wow, what a journey to get there. Okay. And that's a really important point that struck me listening to you, Simon. And then the other point that I really felt strongly listening to you is that you had a day-to-day hands-on involvement. And as we haven't talked about masculinity and manhood, but as you said, you are a father and a mother. And I think those roles of father, what does it mean to be a father? I mean, I think that has changed over time.
Yeah.
And I think before it was very much, we look at our own fathers and then their fathers before. They're very delineated as to what the mother should be doing and what the father should be doing. And even now today, I think this is the issue, a lot of fathers, as it were, what they perceive the stereotype of roles as to the mother should be doing this, the father should be doing that. However, who says that? I mean, you've just proven, and by telling me and explaining what you do hands-on all the time, changing, feeding, whatever, and everything else, that in fact there shouldn't be any delineation, because the more it is a partnership between, and I think this is another really important message, being good parents. What is good parents? We can talk about that another time, but fatherhood means that you have a partnership with the mother, with your wife, with your partner, and then I think that should be made clear really early on. I think this is where a lot of families, parents, this is where relationships they change immediately on the birth, but not all the time for the better, because they haven't really discussed how they're going to get involved and share the duties, the responsibilities, because make no mistake, you said it is very rewarding, but it is very tough. There's a lot of things to do all the time, and you have to get stuck in. You
do have to get stuck in. And the more I think about now, or the last 6 months, since becoming a physical father, because my children are here, the more I realize how much preparation there was for it. I feel in some ways I learned so many things that I was ready for that a lot of men aren't ready for. So there was something, there's a few things I learned that I think, wow, no, that stood me in really good stead, which was this, right? A lot of men really struggle when they become a father because their wife's attention comes off of them and goes on to their children, right? Yeah. And I learned that a long, long time ago, that I was, and part of being a man is you have to be able to sustain yourself without a woman's love, right? Like, without, whether it's your mother or a wife, you have to be able to sustain your own attention within yourself. And I know a lot of men struggle because they're not the center of attention anymore, but then not only that, right? Before I met my wife, I was the most important person, okay? And then I met my wife, and then there was this wrestle, right? Where I had to really realize I'm not the most important person in this marriage. Jess is more important than me, okay? And I'm not a believer in happy wife, happy life, because I think it's a relationship. but to be truly giving rather than taking, be a giving person, a generous person, a loving person, and then children come along, and I'm as a man, and I believe this is totally a total truth to be accepted, right? That I'm the least important person in my household. Okay. Now the paradox is I'm the most important, because if I'm not well rested, if I don't get my sleep, if I don't eat well, if I'm not healthy, if I'm not happy, then it affects my whole household. So I need to take care of myself for my family. Okay, but my family's needs are more than me. And this is when you get this real appreciation. I'm on these dad groups on Facebook, and there's all these memes of there's all these funny memes that dads post on there of 2 pieces of bread and a piece of cheese in the middle, and that's just dinner for dad, And I was Of course, like if I'm making bottles and I need, like my wife double breastfed my sons for 4 or 5 months, right? Which is a
Yeah,
miracle.
yeah,
To double breastfeed, she was double pumping.
yeah, yeah.
My thoughts when I'm cooking are not what do I want for dinner? It's
Mm,
what's going to nourish my wife's body so that she can
mm,
feed my sons, so that my
mm.
sons grow up strong, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they find good wives, so that they have good families. So in that moment, I'm feeding the future of my generations by making sure my wife has what she needs.
I think that's a really critical point that I think a lot of men, as a race, we're quite selfish. And as you say, as you're single, you come and go, do what you want. And I really struggle with that, if I'm honest with you, because I've always been, in the 20s and early 30s, you just used to being single and doing stuff on your own. And then you have a relationship. But then very soon we had children very, very quickly. But then it takes time for you to adjust. Otherwise, because I think otherwise you can come to a feeling that some men, and I've certainly felt that at times, resentful because of the time.
Yeah,
You don't have the time. For example, every Sunday I had a routine. Sunday mornings was my me time, and I was just used to getting up, getting the paper, and reading it for hours because I used to love doing that. And as soon as the babies were born, no, you don't have that time anymore. You've got to you can't predetermine what you're going to do because it's something happens and you've got to get stuck in. And that took a while for
yeah, it
me
does, yeah,
to realize that. Hang on, you've got to change the way you're being here because you can't just do what you used to do before and then spend 5 or 10 minutes doing something for the kids and then going back to your own life. That your life is different and you have to accept that.
yeah.
But I think a lot of men struggle with that concept, and it is a change of mindset. So when you when say when I remember asking before my children were born and asking fathers, what's it like? What should I learn? And and 9 times, all I remember was them saying, "Oh, lack of sleep is a killer." There's nothing else that they could really. That's the only message I seem to have gotten from
Yeah.
them. But there's a hell of a lot more to prepare for, and a lot of it is psychological, is in terms of preparing yourself and your change of mindset. That's probably
Yeah.
more important than the lack of sleep for the first 9 months can be very torturous, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. However, it's what happens after the morning and the rest of the day that
Yeah.
really matters and how you adapt.
There's a lot of there's a lot of things you need, I think, as a father that I think can be worked on before. And I almost feel like fatherhood. Like I follow a lot of people on Twitter and on Facebook. I'm a lot of men's groups, fatherhood groups, and there's a real thought that fatherlessness and fatherhood is the great problem of our time, right? 90% of inmates in America are men. Of those men, I think it's 80% come from fatherless homes. Divorced and fatherless families are proven that poverty, health issues, all go through suicide. And we don't prepare our men. We're not preparing our young men to become fathers. The greatest preparation is that they have their own father, but the role of a father should be to prepare his sons to become a father. And that is a very deliberate, almost like university course on what it requires to become a father. I found mine in teachers. I looked at my dad, but even then I wasn't really ready. But on these groups, you see these, I like men's groups. I'm a really big fan because what you do is you get men are very, very good at just like, so I'll give you an example. A man comes on the man's group and goes, so it's Twin Dads was the group. And the post went something like this. Hello, dads. My wife gave birth 3 months ago and we never have sex. I can't believe she doesn't have sex with me. It's been 3 months, for God's sake. We used to have sex all the time. Why won't she have sex with me? She's such a brr. Right, that was the post. I'm on a men's group with 25,000 men on it. Can you imagine the comments? Can you imagine the comments to that post? Like, you,
Variable.
it was like this. So you fucking what? That's what it was like. The whole comments embodied was like, you what? What on earth? And like, I saw these men come under fire from other men who were going, your wife's just sacrificed her body for not just the birth. And these men just like, oh, my wife, like, and even things like postpartum, postpartum depression, PTSD, postpartum psychosis. If you do, I've had to do a lot of reading on a lot of post-birth stuff because Jess had a really traumatic birth. It was a really traumatic birth, and we have no idea what women go through to give birth to these children.
Yeah.
And so there's a real understanding and a period there where we have to be so compassionate. And I think a lot of men are selfish. I know I was selfish in so many ways, and it gets knocked out of me when I read posts,
Yeah, it does get knocked out of you. Well, it should do if you want to make this, not successful, but if you to learn and to grow and to stay close, you've got to get that knocked out of you. But I think another point, which a lot of these fatherhood, you'll be listening and reading, Simon, as you'll soon see, and which is very apparent, that these issues with fatherhood are perpetuating limiting beliefs that they have, and they have learned themselves from their own parental experience, from their own parents, and whatever values they have and beliefs they've seen, how they've been brought up from their own parents, and they just carry on with those beliefs. And I think it brings home to roost. So you're telling me about a lot of fatherless children in America, because it is the norm that you've got a father in your life. Wow, that's amazing. But because, as you say, it's almost a norm, and even in this country, it's still seen in some parts of the country to have a father in your life as growing up as a child is exceptional. Rather than the norm. But so you have to look at what is it that these beliefs are. So you have to challenge yourself to become a good father. You have to really look at your belief systems and to understand. And some of those belief systems come from your parents, but some of them are cultural. So you talk about America, there's a lot of cultural baggage, which we can't go into today, but there's a lot of cultural baggage, and being from an Asian family myself, I have a lot of cultural baggage to deal with, relating to how the roles and expectations of a father and of a man, and same from where you grew up as well. But that has an important aspect on how you bring up your children, Simon.
And you see it, don't you, Vipan? Very quickly, you see it. I think what fatherhood. You asked me what I think actually one of my main reflections in the first 6 months is immediately what came out of me was my own father, the culture, and with all of its good and its bad. But there was bits. I started to see my own dad in myself, which was challenging. Really challenging to see, because you grow up thinking I'm not like my dad, and then it gets brought out of you when you embody the spirit of fatherhood. It comes out like little things my dad would do that I knew were not healthy for me. I started doing, and I've really had to go, oh no, got to stop those. And culturally too, and I think it's you make a really good point to be aware of those. But I think also there's another thing too, which is almost the antidote to that is, I think most men. No, I don't know, actually. I can't say for sure whether it's most men, but I would imagine a lot of men would not have a vision of the kind of father they want to be. The kind of father I want to be, a dream, a vision of fatherhood, a role model out there that was outside of your culture and, and outside of the family and outside of the society almost, like to have some sort of orientating principality that you go, that's who I want to be. That's what I want to embody. And I think that comes through, it can come through spirituality, a connection to the Father, it can come through a role model. I found mine in pastors. I've shown you TD Jakes. I found mine in a couple of pastors and a couple of role models where I've gone, okay, I get to make myself into the father I want to be. I'm going to take a little bit of that. I'm going to take a little bit of that. I'm not going to have any of that. I'm not going to be like that. And almost like build myself as a father over time.
But you've shown awareness and being in the moment. A lot of parents, a lot of fathers don't do that because they just go on day to day, and they see that, and some see it as a grind, and they're stuck in this. They see it as they're stuck in this like a repetitive. What's that film? Groundhog Day type of scenario. Yeah. But you've got to escape and look at yourself, and you've got to be aware. And I think it's not easy because when you're in the moment and knee deep in changing nappies and whatever, and we're still stuck in the first early years of fatherhood here. We haven't even got on to the next 8 years and thereafter. So probably have to do that another time. But the first year you're just stuck trying to get through the basics of life, let alone think about the future of what fatherhood looks like. But it takes real effort, Simon, and consciousness, and being, we talk about that, being in the moment and thinking to yourself, what is it that I'm doing and how am I doing it? But sometimes you need someone else to tell you. Otherwise, you as you say, you're not aware that you're perpetually, you say, I'm not going to be like my father, but you end up, as you say, behaving, especially later on. It took a long time for me to realize, bloody hell, I said I wasn't going to do this, and in fact, that's what I have been doing.
Yeah.
And it has severe repercussions until you actually identify what you've been doing and then take steps to change.
Yeah.
But how many of us are aware of that? It's that my favourite word is going to come out again, Simon. Perspicacity. That self-insight. It's where you've got to challenge yourself sometimes, and that's not always easy, especially in the first periods of life of your new babies.
Yeah, it's a real. The more I think about it, the more I think there should be a focus on the preparation for fatherhood. I was at a retreat this weekend and I met a guy, 42, young spirit, beautiful, beautiful guy. And we're sitting in a group, the three of us, and two of us had wives and children, and he's on a spiritual journey. He's looking for himself, and I could feel the spirit of fatherhood in him. The spirit of fatherhood lives in someone when you think, God, that guy's going to be a great dad, And I had a really deep conversation with him, and I just sort of like said to him, he doesn't even have his woman yet. He hasn't met his woman, but I felt like he was preparing for it all. And I said, you might feel like you're searching for something, but for me, I can feel in you that you're preparing yourself. You're purifying your mind and your body so that you can receive a divine light in a woman, a strong woman, because, fatherhood, you can't speak about fatherhood without your responsibility to motherhood. And true motherhood is fierce, it's soft, it's hard, it's your true motherhood. Like if you want a proper woman in your life, you need to be ready, right? Like, I've met Rajni, Vipan. I know she's a strong woman, and she's a mother. She emanates motherhood. And same with Jess. And I think that I've spoken a lot about rites of passage and how we miss rites of passage that take people from being adolescents into adults. And then from adulthood into fatherhood, there's another period there of preparation. Prepare your space, prepare your mind. I know men who get married and they have pornography addictions, and they get married and they're still drinking too much, and they get married and they wonder why their wives don't trust them, and then they go ahead and have children with those preset of conditions, and they're starting off on the wrong foot, and they never ever recover. And I think there should be a message to young men, which is, young men should be given this message. There is nothing higher than fatherhood. That's the first message. There is no higher path than fatherhood. There's nothing higher. Okay, the ultimate responsibility is to be a father. That should just be a message. Okay, and you could be the same sex marriage and that be there's no exceptions. The next things too is it's going to require your heart, gut, soul, mind, and spirit to become one. Number two, you're going to have to spend 10 years preparing just for the woman who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. You know, and there should be this like whole purification, preparation, rites of passage where we prepare our men to become fathers. You look at tribes, right? I could take any tribe, but take Native American, the great chiefs. You know, they have to become warriors. The first thing they do is become warriors, and they have their father, and then there's grandfathers and elders, and there's this hierarchical journey of fatherhood that you go through. You know, you're on this journey. Your son will hopefully one day become a father, and you will be a grandfather. And if he bears a son or a daughter, it doesn't really matter. There's a hierarchy there where what you've learned can be passed down, because you're going to die one day, and your son will die one day, and his children will die one day. And we're passing on the seeds of our wisdom. And I look into our culture and I go, literally, it's not there. You know, I have to find my wisdom in tribal wisdom and in outside sources, and in shamanism and in spirituality, not necessarily religion, but I have to find my inspiration of fatherhood in so many ways. But I don't find it with our government. You know, they're not education. You know, the way we heal ourselves with medication, like our society. The spirit of fatherhood is not really in our society. I mean, look at our recent father, Boris Johnson, right? Mm-hmm. That's our father, right? He's meant to be a father figure. And you look to that guy and you go, that is not my doesn't have the spirit of fatherhood.
No, I think role models are not encapsulated in Boris Johnson for sure. But I mean, it takes a lot of effort for sure, Simon. And I think most. And it's really interesting that, you know, 20 years ago, we didn't have those father groups. That we had the online mother groups are just starting, like Mumsnet, but there was nothing similar to father groups. But I think that's really useful and helpful. I suppose that's one excellent move forward, as it were, advance in technology.
Good, yeah. Even now with your son, your children grown up, I would encourage you to, because there's great humour on them. You know, because you know, it's like doctors who are in cancer wards, and I don't use that, you know, analogy lightly. Like, being a father is so intense sometimes. You know, you have to stand in the fire, and there's confusion. You don't know what to do, and there's everyone's different needs, and you have to find humour. And there's so much humour in there, and it really lightens my view of the responsibility that we take as fathers. You know, it's
you need a definite sense of humour to cope. And I think
you have that.
Yeah, no, I do have that. Sometimes very inappropriate, as my children keep telling me.
Hey, Vipan, we're at the end of the podcast.
I know. We've only just started touching on
another great subject. You know, such a great subject to talk about.
We'll come back onto this, I think, because we only just touched on the first elements of it.
Yeah, it's an important subject. It's a really important subject.
Yeah, and I think there's a hell of a lot more to say about it, and we'll come back to it. I'm sure we will. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, why don't we do next week for the listeners too, to look forward to the next podcast? Why don't we move seamlessly into manhood? So the journey, or like maturation. So the journey from boy to man. Why don't we look at that, maturation, how to become mature, how to grow up, growing up. Why don't we look at growing up and how to become a person and the journey through life as a man?
Okay, yeah, let's do that then. Okay, very good.
All right, I'll press stop the record and I'll keep talking to you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.